Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, Happy New Year. This is going to be an amazing 2026. And it's what we're going to be talking about today is how to reinvent and reimagine your life, whether that's after service, whether it's after hanging up the jersey, hanging up the gun belt, hanging up the uniform. My brother JR is a truly amazing person. Former athlete. He's a Swiss Army knife of positivity, even though he's gone through so much stuff, especially last year was a rough year, but he's still in the process of reinventing and reimagining himself. JR, my brother, welcome to the show.
Pumped to be here, Richard. Thank you for having me, brother.
I'm so grateful for you. My first question right out of the gate, what is your definition of resiliency?
Great question. I would say my definition of resiliency is continuing to keep your head up and look forward and focus on the things that you can control no matter what happens to you.
I love it. So give us a quick down and dirty. Where'd you come from? Where'd you grow up? And how did you become the force that you are today?
So I'm originally from Central Massachusetts, right outside the second largest city in New England, Worcester, Massachusetts, also known as the heart of the Commonwealth. I am the oldest son of a Hall of Fame high school hockey coach. So my father coached Marlborough High School for 28 years. I grew up obviously in a locker room. I played high school hockey. I got a chance to go to a prep school to play hockey. And then I played at my hometown Division I school, College of the Holy Cross, right in Worcester. And I was part of a team that beat the University of Minnesota in 2006, considered the biggest upset in college hockey history. We're actually celebrating 20 years in February on that big upset. Both my brothers also played college hockey. One of my brothers actually played in the NHL for 4 or 5 years and represented the United States in the 2018 Olympics over in South Korea. And I, after my hockey career, I struggled with the transition. The way that struggle showed up for me was drugs and alcohol. And, I had a tough, probably 5 or 6 years. I call it my handcuffs and hospital era. But I got sober, I kind of got dialed in, and I spent the last 17 years before I started my company now in the technology industry. I got really lucky in 2008. I kind of tripped and fell into it, which is, I graduated college with a sociology degree and a minor in art history and sign language. And, Richard, you remember July 2008 when the U.S. lost about $2 trillion in GDP. So I wasn't exactly fighting the job offers off. So I kind of tripped and fell into sales and got lucky in that I landed in the technology industry, even though I didn't own a computer at the time, and spent 17 years in that space, mainly as a sales leader. I did individual contributor for a few years, and then I built sales teams, was part of a great company build here in Boston, a company called Turbonomic that I joined pretty early days and helped build it and helped execute. And we were acquired by IBM for $2 billion. And that's kind of where my company now was born. Was the experience of the transition for me was brutal. And I wish I had more help. And hiring as a business leader is really the hardest thing that you do. And I don't think that modern hiring processes are really built for anybody to be successful. I don't think they're built for the right candidates to be successful, and I don't think they're built for leadership to be successful. So I'm trying to build a platform that's going to solve both of those problems. And we're still early days. It's only been 3.5 years since we launched, but we're off to a great start. And that's my mission in life now is Shift Group, and obviously being a great family member, both for my direct family, but also my wife and my kids. So I'm still living in Boston as of now and trying to take Shift Group to the moon, my friend.
I love it. And you got to be loving the New England Patriots are back on top of the AFC East.
I love it. And I know how how freaking annoying it must be for everybody else to see us be good again. But yeah, I'm loving it, dude. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Robert Kraft myself. So let's go back, hop in the Wayback Machine, because I find out some of the toughest athletes I've ever met are either wrestlers or hockey players. So take us into the locker room. What makes hockey players so damn tough physically and mentally?
Well, I think on the physical side, right? It is the fastest game that you can play, and it is inherently a very, very physical game, right? Like you got a stick in your hand, you got blades on your feet, you're moving significantly faster than you can without those blades on your feet, and you're running full speed into each other. So I think the game lends itself to like kind of building that physical resiliency and toughness over time. I also think generally the culture in hockey, and you see it now, even nowadays, where, you know, I think a lot of people argue folks are getting softer. You see someone like break their orbital bone in the first period, and then in the second period, you see them out on the ice again. And that's unique for sure. That's unique to hockey, to your point. And I actually think those two things are tied together, because you asked about the cultural and the locker room mentality. Why are we so mentally tough? You get hammered into your head from like a very early age that it's team first, and the goal is for the team to win. And your responsibility is to do whatever your part is and to do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. It's not like there is zero hockey teams out there that are good because of one or two people. It's not like a basketball, or I would even argue like a football, where like a good quarterback and a good receiver can kind of carry you through a game. You need everybody to win a hockey game. And I think because of that early indoctrination into team first means that like you're going to play through an injury and you're going to play hurt because you got to do it for the team. And that team first attitude drives a lot of the toughness that you see in hockey players. It's really unique. And I always appreciate when people recognize that. So thank you.
Oh, my house is divided. I'm a Devils fan. My wife's a Rangers fan. So our house is divided about 5 or 6 days out of the year.
Well, here's a little factoid for you, Richard. My brother was part of the Parisi trade out of New Jersey, and he wore number 9 for the Devils, and he also played in the Rangers organization. He was in Hartford at the time. I've been a fan of both. If that's helpful.
Yeah, I got to give a big shout out to Mr. Parisi. He's very big on veterans projects. He's very big on helping veterans get back on their feet again. So I want to give a big shout out. He actually invited me down when he was a part of the Devils on Veterans Appreciation Day to come down and hang out with. So Zach, I love you, brother. Thank you so much. But now, what was it like to know what your last game was and having to hang up that sweater for the last time?
It was brutal. And honestly, I never thought about it, Richard, until it happened. And I always try to describe this you understand, a lot of veterans understand this story, but like I had this thing that I thought about every single day as long as I could remember. It was the first thing I thought about when I woke up in the morning. It was the last thing I thought about when I went to bed. It drove every decision I made. It gave me my values. It gave me my identity. It gave me my purpose. If you asked me before my last hockey game who I was, my answer was I'm a hockey player. Like, regardless of the context of when you asked me the question. And all of that is phenomenal. And we can get into like what that gives you. But then I woke up the next morning and all of it was gone like that overnight. And that's kind of what led to like a lot of the stuff I dealt with. one, I wasn't prepared, but two, I didn't have any of the tools to understand like because I was a pretty elite human as when I was playing hockey, right? You got to be to play at the Division I level, even just to play at the college level. You have to be disciplined. You have to be consistent. You have to be all these things, and I lost all of that because I didn't have the tools to unlock them again. So it's excuse my French, it's fucking brutal. It is, and I can say this now, especially. It is very similar to losing a loved one, like the grief process and like how you have to go through that. That's what it was like for me anyway.
So, one day you're getting up, you're getting ready to go to practice. You get up a certain time, you're in that zone. You eat breakfast at a certain time. You got to be at the rink at a certain time. The next day, you don't know what to do. You don't know what do I do? I'm now I don't know what to do at all, and I have to reinvent my life. So what was that day like, having to figure out, oh shit, now what?
It was brutal. And if I'm being honest with you, Richard, like there's a lot of emotions that go with it and a lot of like mental gymnastics that you have to do. And if I'm being really honest, like the day after and the several years after, I didn't deal with them. That's kind of what led for me. That's what led to like drugs and alcohol, because I didn't have whether it was the maturity or like the structure or the tools to like think about it and reflect and do the work that I've now figured out is necessary to do after something like that. So those years after there they're kind of blurry to me, and they're really painful. So that's exactly why we do what we do now, because I wish that this company existed when I was at that spot, because I think it would have made a huge difference for me.
So now you're getting into the workspace. What did you take from the ice that you started using as far as discipline and stuff like that when you got into the workplace?
Well, initially, like I was kind of going through the motions. I think once I did the work of like reinvention, there's so much that I unlocked from my hockey career, right? Like we've talked about, one of the core topics that you focus on around resiliency, discipline, I would say like, and to define discipline, it's like doing the shit you don't want to do because you have to do it to get what you want. Coachability, right? Like that's been a huge, even now as a CEO and founder and like, in my 40s, I pride myself on being able to take feedback and then apply it, because that's how I was as a player. And then I think the other thing is something we just talked about, which is like, I do have a team first attitude, even as a individual contributor and as like a first line leader, not at the executive level. Like I always put the company first. And those are all things that I developed for many years, playing hockey. And I think the last piece is just like, a growth mindset, like being okay, being bad at something and having the confidence that if I do the work, I will become good at this. Right. I'm doing it. I'm dealing with it right now as like AI is becoming a bigger thing. I'm trying to like, I'm awful at it, but I'm doing everything on a daily basis to like, this is a really powerful thing. And I got to figure out how it's going to make me better, how it's going to make my business better. Like that's a real example, just like a backhand. When I was 9 years old and I couldn't take a backhand, my dad came home one day and I was shooting pucks in the driveway. And he's like, how many shots did you take today? And I was like, I was a sicko. So I took like 400 shots. And he's like, okay, how many backhands did you take? Because I was bad at backhands. I didn't take any backhands. I'm like 9 years old, by the way, Richard, when we had this conversation. And my dad said, JR, you don't get better by doing the stuff you're already good at. Like that's like, if you're going to sit here and shoot 400 pucks, shoot 400 backhands. That's how you're going to be a better hockey player, not taking 400 slap shots because it feels good because you're good at it. So I think that mindset has really, all those things have really served me in my professional career.
So now you said you struggled with alcoholism, drug addiction after having to take the sweater off. What was the moment when you decided, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I want a life that I can be proud of?
I think like many people, I hit multiple rock bottoms, but my last experience was we went to Vegas for my youngest brother's 21st birthday. And, you know, I'm at like the peak of use at that point. So I did what guys like me in that spot do in Vegas, right? Like I made a call, had a, you know, basically a bender for 4 days, you know, didn't sleep, don't remember a lot. And we're flying back to Vegas and my brothers are like horrified. And I justified it like you do. I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like it's Vegas. Like that's what you do. But then I was sitting in the cab back to my apartment in Boston from Logan Airport. And I really thought about it. And I was like, those guys are horrified by what I just did in Las Vegas at like this, like, you know, celebration of life that's supposed to be debauchery and pretty degenerate, like naturally. That's why you go to Vegas, right? And I realized like, oh, I'm doing this every weekend in Boston. And I was going on 4-day benders, disappearing, not remembering anything. And that was kind of my moment of like, I think I have a problem. And that wasn't, I didn't actually get sober until 2 months after that, because I did what a lot of addicts do, which is like, I call it equations. I was like, well, as long as I don't have shots, as long as I don't call and, you know, get this stuff, then I'm okay. But ultimately the acceptance of like me plus alcohol equals a problem and led to everything else is kind of what finally got me over the hump and got me sober, and then working the program, as I can tell you do, with that quote of sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, like I said, I just celebrated 36 years, one day at a time, you know, like like they say in the meetings, you know, one day at a time. But I also knew when I got sober that I had to get away from people, places, and things and start doing things differently. So what did you have to start doing differently?
So I had to figure out who I was as not a hockey player and not like the fun guy at the bar, right? Like not the party guy, because that's ultimately like really what happened after my hockey career. Is like that's ended up being the identity that I landed in because of how I dealt with some of the emotional problems. So I had to do the work to like reinvent myself and decide who I was going to be. Certainly I lost touch with certain groups of people that were in my life, but you know, I think Massachusetts is unique. And like, I have a lot of friends that I've known since I was, you know, 5 years old. And a lot of those people stuck with me through that. And are still in my life, and they've seen that reinvention process. But the reinvention process itself wasn't easy, and I had to figure it out myself. But that's kind of what we're codifying now, and I'm happy to kind of talk through how I think about it, if that's helpful.
Yes, let's dive a little bit deeper.
So the work that I did in sobriety, like in the early days, the number one thing was like how do I say this? Like repositioning my own story, Richard, right? Like instead of being a victim and feeling sorry for myself that hockey was over, instead what I did was I looked back at my experience as an athlete, and I decided like, okay, I need to look at this experience, the intangible characteristics that I developed, the mindsets that I developed, and those need to inform my story. That not just that I tell other people, but also that I tell myself, right? So that was number one. And part of that process, in order to do that, is you have to get like, it's so uncomfortable, but you have to get like really radically self-aware. Like you have to really know who you are. What are your values? What are your strengths? What are the experiences that like, really truly shaped you, and the challenges that you've overcome, and how did those things make you who you are? And then also part of that work of like reflection and self-awareness was starting to think about like, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? Because I wasn't thinking, as you know, I wasn't not thinking 5 years ahead when I was drinking and drugging, right? Like I was thinking about Thursday night, like where are we going? What are we going to get into? So that's a big part. I think a really big part of self-awareness is trying to think about like, forget about your job, your title, even like not necessarily like how much money you make, but like, what do you want your life to look like? Like, what do you want your world to look like? What's important to you, and what gives you energy, and what drains your energy, and like, what is the vision for your future? Because if you don't, my vision for 25 years was professional hockey player. Like that, I knew I was going to be an NHL player. I was going to drive a beautiful car, live in a great home. Like that was so clear to me. That's why I shot 400 pucks every day, right? Like, because I knew what I was working towards. The reason I stopped working consistently and being disciplined is because I did not have that anymore. I did not have awareness of what I wanted. So that's part of that awareness work that I did. And then once you like have a more positive outlook on your story, both internally and externally, once you have immense self-awareness about who you are and what you want, the rest of the stuff kind of comes back to you, right? Like that discipline, that resiliency, that consistency. And as an athlete, what I had to do was like, okay, here's my vision. What can I overlay this on top of from a career perspective that unlocks that? And, I think a lot of my friends, and I see this every day in the folks that we work with, they think vision means like, I want to be an investment banker, or I want to, work in venture or private equity or whatever these sexy jobs are. And I thankfully didn't have that problem because, you get told your whole life, like you need to be passionate about what you do. Right. And I think that's horseshit, if I'm being really honest with you. You earn passion, right? Like the reason I did not want to be a sales guy. I felt like sales is beneath me. I went to Holy Cross. I was a smart kid, good student. Like I should be, working on Wall Street or be a doctor or a lawyer. My majors didn't lend itself to that. So I graduated in 2008 when the economy sucked. So I fell into a sales job, and I was like, I'm never going to be passionate about this. But once I understood how that role matched the vision I wanted in my life, guess what happened, Richard? I got really passionate about sales, right? Like some of my best friends sell insurance or, work in like these industries that you look at and they're like, oh, that's pretty fucking boring, but they love it, And if you told them when they were 23, like, dude, you're going to be super passionate about the insurance industry, they would have laughed in your face. So I think that passion comes from that vision and being able to overlay that vision on like what you do every day. And then once you have that positive story, that self-awareness of who you are and what you want, and that vision, and you can find the right thing to overlay it on, then your job is to just do what you did in uniform, which is execute the playbook, because the playbook already exists for whatever you decide to overlay, right? And that's what I think when you get out of the military and you get out of sports, you talked about this idea of structure and, having something to do every day, because it's the playbook, right? It's the SOP in the military terminology. You lose your SOP, you lose your playbook. But if you do all that work we talked about, there is a playbook and there are an SOP for this thing that you ended up landing in. So then it's just execution. And by the way, most people don't have the ability to execute an SOP on a daily basis or a playbook on a daily basis. That's what makes athletes and veterans so powerful in the professional setting. is because they understand that, and they can do it. So that's what led to all the success I had, was that work, understanding the playbook, and then just doing what I did up until 25 years old. I didn't shoot 400 pucks a day when I was 30, but I made 400 cold calls and got better at messaging and better at objection handling, right? So it's like different skill, same mindset, same kind of process. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. But now, eventually, you became a entrepreneur, and so there's a big mindset shift between cashing the checks and writing the checks.
Yes.
So talk about the mindset shift it takes to go from an intrapreneur to an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Like I actually think it's a lot of the same. It's a transition, right? So what do we do in a transition? We reflect on our past experience and we think about, like, okay, what have I gone through that's gonna help me now in the next step, right? I got really self-aware from a business perspective. Like, building a business requires a lot more. I was lucky, Richard, because I came from a sales background, and anybody who started a business knows that, like, you can be bad at everything, but as long as you're good at sales, like, it kind of keeps you afloat for a while. But I was also very aware, like, I'm not an operator. Like, I'm not super operationally sound. Like, I'm going to kind of wing it and get shit done, because that's what I did my whole sales career. So I had to like really like accept and appreciate that. I had to be careful about the stuff that we did as we built the business, because I knew that wasn't a strength for me. And then I had to figure out a way to build the business in a way where I could unlock my strengths that would help the company grow, but also, like, make sure that I'm surrounded by people that were going to fill in my holes, because I have a lot. And I think, like, again, what's the vision? Okay, this is what I want the company to be. What do we have to do? Here's the playbook. Let's go execute, right? And that's what we're trying to do now. Now, what I will say is entrepreneurship is a lot harder than entrepreneurship. And every day is a different struggle, but it's a lot of fun. But you have a lot of nights where you kind of sit in bed and stare at the ceiling, and you're like, fuck, maybe I should just go get a job. And that's happened to me a lot. But because I have that vision, dude, like, I got resiliency through these downturns that we go through as a business. And I started the company the beginning of 2022. The first 6 months, I was like, oh, this is going to be a huge company. And then July 2022, the interest rates like tripled overnight. I think there was like hundreds and millions of people got laid off across companies all over the place, and we were making money by getting people jobs, and the people we were working with at companies were getting fired. So, like, we got through that, and now I feel like we can get through everything, but it has not been easy, dude, at all.
I can see where, starting the company and wanting to help athletes, but where did the veterans come along? Where did that come into play?
It was always, honestly, like, I thought of the idea for Shift Group. I'm doing math, 6 years before I started it. I actually have the original deck that I made on a flight over to London, because I did a call because of my brothers and my dad, and the hockey world is a small world. I got a lot of calls from hockey players my whole career, being like, JR, I heard you're not that smart, but you've made a bunch of money. Can you help me with my transition? So I was always helping hockey players. But the idea for Shift Group, I did a call at Logan Airport before my flight, and I was like, dude, I've helped a lot of people. And inevitably, Richard, I would work with these guys. I'd introduce them into my network. They would get jobs. And then the person I introduced them to would call me 6 months later and be like, dude, this kid is a weapon. Like, thank you for making the introduction. And that means I should be charging somebody for this service, right? Mainly the company, because they're the ones who are winning the most because of the work that I did with these. They're getting business value from the work that I done. That's how the idea came, where We can help these people for free if we charge these people, the companies. That's how our model still works and always will work. We never have charged $1 to a single individual. The veteran thing, how did that come about? When I was 24, 25 years old in Worcester, drinking my misery away, I had a lot of buddies that I went to high school with, not my prep school, but my public high school with, that when they graduated from high school, they enlisted. And, they got back, 6-7 years of Iraq and Afghanistan, and we're having the same conversations, dude. I'm saying the same thing. They're like, yeah, exactly. That's how I feel, JR. And I knew kind of from an early day, like, okay, that transition I know is similar. That loss of purpose and identity is similar. But I also knew these guys, and I saw how much the military matured them. I saw the intangibles that they had developed that they maybe didn't have when they were 18, when we graduated from high school. And, obviously I'm a third generation American. So my grandparents are immigrants, but my two grandfathers served in the Army, one of whom I never met, but my mom's dad lived with us until he passed away when I was 17. And there was not a day in the life of living with Walter, my grandfather, where he didn't mention something about the military and what it gave him. So I knew that when we started this company, we needed to serve both populations, because the experience of transition are similar, but the intangibles that are developed are also very, very similar.
Now, you've said over the last 3 years, I forget how many thousands of athletes and veterans you've helped place in amazing careers. I hate job. I hate the word job. I believe in careers.
Yeah.
What makes a veteran a great employee?
Well, I think it's a couple different things, right? And the terminology might be different, but it's really, resiliency and discipline is built into the military. I mean, the military is almost exclusively shit you don't want to do, if we're being really honest, right? Like, you get to do some pretty cool, fun shit in combat potentially, and all that stuff. But like, those are seconds of experience for years of shitty things that you don't want to do, right? So I think that discipline is it's so ingrained in the military experience that it's like probably more ingrained than the athlete side. The trainability, right? Like, these guys go into the military, like, you don't learn how to be like an operator in college and high school and anything, unless you grew up and your dad or someone in your family like put you through shit. Like, everything you're learning in the military is a new skill, and they do it right. That it's not called coachability, it's called trainability, but it's the same thing, dude. Like, you are doing a lot of stuff that you're really bad at, and you become excellent at it, and that because you have to, because it's life or death. So that trainability, and then of course, dude, the team first attitude, right? Like, you're literally willing to die for your team. Like, that's unmatched team first attitude, in my opinion. And then just like SOP execution, like, I'm sure you're familiar with a terminology called commander's intent. That's what you like. The only word I can think of off the top of my head is like figure out ability. Like, somebody gives you an end state and guardrails and you fucking do it, right? Like, guess what? At a great company with good leadership, that's how it works, dude. You're not going to be micromanaged. They're going to say, here's the goal at the end of the quarter. Here's your guardrails. Here's your resources. See you in 90 days, right? So like that, all of those things make, if you can unlock them, which is so critical, right? Like doing that reinvention work. But if you can unlock those again, you have those muscles more than 99% of the general population, because 99% of the general population is not you, did not serve, did not make the sacrifice that you made. So you have to take advantage of those, because that is not natural. And that's what I think a lot of athletes and veterans don't understand, is like, they're surrounded by other athletes or other service members for a long time. So they think this is like how everybody is.
Yeah.
What you don't appreciate is like, no, dude, trust me, that is not how everybody is. So you have to be able to bring that to the table. And no matter what you want to do, you're going to be part of that 1% again if you can unlock that again. I really do believe that.
So talk to us about what's going on with Shift Group. You know, it's 2026, the first week of 2026. What's going on with Shift Group?
Yeah, we're a couple big changes for us. So historically, our business model was there's a lot of like executive search firms that focus on mainly veterans. I don't think the athlete thing. There's a few, but the model that we built the business on was staffing and recruiting, Richard. So like, you know, you go in, you sign a contract with a company, and then you put forward candidates. If they end up hiring anybody, they pay you 20% of base salary, right? Pretty standard kind of operating procedure in staffing and recruiting. And that's how we built the business. But because of the success we've had over the last 3.5 years, we're up to like about 1,500 new athletes and veterans that sign up for our program every single month. And we built like a really modern digital platform that allows them to do that self-reflection, that storytelling, that vision building, that career discovery. And by the way, I have an old boss that used to say, you leave your job at 5 p.m., you leave your career at 7. So I love that. And then we also give we give them the playbook for what they end up choosing. And they do this all on their own pace online. They can join group calls with our team. We have 48 every week that they can join when it works for them to help them do the work. At the end of the process, what we built is like a platform where they have videos. So a veteran signs up for us, does self-discovery, does career discovery, chooses their career path, then does upskilling in that career path. So very basic playbook. Here's the 4 skills that matter. Here's what the skill is. And then what they do as they go through that is they create videos. So they have a video of them telling their story. They have a video of them explaining why I want to do finance or HR or business development. Then for whatever they choose, there's like 3 or 4 video slots for them to upload a video about the skill that we taught them. And then companies come in and that's how they evaluate the candidates. They have to watch a video before they can even look at a resume, because I think the resume is the stupidest thing in the fucking world, dude. It's, 500 years old. It's crazy. But and we did that for a while in our old model, but what we started to see was like, well, we don't need to make, $8,000-$10,000 every time someone gets hired. Like we have enough candidates where, let's just charge a flat subscription to the platform. And we did that. We moved to that model in Q4. So it's good for the customer because it's lower price. But most importantly, it's really good for the candidates because now companies, they're not making a judgment like, well, this candidate and this candidate aren't necessarily even, but this candidate costs 10 grand and this candidate's free because they applied online. Now we've kind of moved we balanced those a little. So now like companies that used to hire 2 or 3 people from us a month are hiring 15 to 20 people from us a month because it's not costing them any extra money. So that's a big deal. And for 2026, like I think we're going to probably 10x how many companies we worked with from last year and 10x how many candidates we place because of this new model. That's the most exciting change we've ever made in the business.
And it doesn't cost anything to the future employee.
$0.
So then how do we say if I'm Private Joe Snuffy, I'm just getting out of the military, what do I do next?
Just probably easiest way to find us is just go to shiftgroup.io and say looking for a job. That'll bring you right into the platform, explain the whole process to you. And the first thing, once you sign in, you can join an intro call with our team and we'll explain the whole process and answer any questions you have. I think it's important to talk about what we don't do as well as what we do. We are built for the veterans and athletes that want to get into the corporate world, right? Like we don't have career paths into education. like healthcare jobs like nurses or doctors or anything like that. Folks that want to get into coaching or, federal government or public government. We don't have those pathways yet. We are very much purpose built for folks that are interested in the corporate path. So that's an important call out. But yeah, I'd say our website, looking for a job, if that aligns with what you want, we can absolutely help you no matter what you want to do in the corporate world.
All right. So this is a teaching podcast. So what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for somebody that's looking to reinvent and reimagine themselves?
Number 1 is figure out how to tell your story in a way that resonates with whoever you're telling it to, including yourself. That's number 1. Number 2 is have a very good understanding of like where you want to be in 5 years. Like you should be able to explain that in a pretty detailed manner, because if you don't know the address of where you're going, you're probably not going to get there, right? So that would be number 2. And then I would say number 3 is apply yourself to your career the same way you applied yourself in uniform. If you do those 3 things, you're going to continue to stay in that 1% if you served in the military. I guarantee it.
I love it. So again, what was that website again?
Shift Group, SHIFTGROUP.io.
I love it. And JR, I just want to say I'm so grateful and humbled that we finally got a chance to get together and hang out today. I truly appreciate everything that you're doing for athletes and veterans across the board. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Richard. I appreciate it.
And guys, as you know, the way I end every episode is something that Joel Osteen, a big quote that he said is, every morning we wake up, we have a choice. We can become a victim or a victor. And if you listen to this show, you're no longer a victim of your past. You're a victor of your present and future. Thank you guys for always showing up. And I love you guys. And remember that vertical momentum, the only way to go is up. I love you guys. JR, my brother, have an awesome week and keep crushing it.
Thank you, brother.